Hey everyone, welcome back to the Incredible India podcast series. I'm Sam.
And I'm Taylor. Great to be back.
Yeah, great to have you. So today we're doing another deep dive.
Yeah.
And this one, well, it's into one of South India's really captivating, kind of enduring mysteries. We're talking about the legend of a lost land, literally swallowed by the ocean. It's a story that's echoed through the culture there for centuries.
It really has. It's much more than just a simple myth, isn't it?
Exactly. It's quite profound, actually. It's embedded deep in ancient Tamil literature, in oral traditions, and kind of surprisingly even pops up in some historical geological thinking.
Right.
So our focus today is specifically on Kumari Kandam. You might hear it called the Maiden Continent or Kumari Land.
Yeah.
It's more than just a place that sank. It's this whole narrative about a glorious past, a really advanced civilization, and the sheer power of natural disasters. So our mission, if you like, for this deep dive is to unpack this amazing story. Look at its roots in the old text, its unexpected links to Western science ideas, and what modern science actually thinks about the whole thing.
That's right, Sam. And for many people, Kumari Kandam really represents a kind of golden age. It's seen as the birthplace, the cradle of this incredibly advanced Tamil civilization, a real testament to its cultural depth, its resilience.
Wow.
So as we go through this, I think it's worth considering, all the different layers of meaning, historical, symbolics that are wrapped up in this legend.
Okay, definitely. So let's unpack that. Given how deep this legend runs, where do we first encounter these stories of Kumari Kandam? What do they actually tell us?
Well, the main source is really the ancient Tamil texts, particularly from what we call the Sangam period.
Right, the Sangam period.
Yeah, that's roughly, say, 3rd century BCE to 3rd century CE. And these texts are incredibly rich. You've got amazing poetry, grammar work, and what they considered historical accounts.
Yeah.
And they describe this huge landmass, vast, stretching way south of where Kanyakumari is today, down towards the equator.
A whole continent, basically.
Pretty much. And crucially, it's painted as the original home of the Tamil people. A really vibrant civilization, just flourishing with, unparalleled wisdom, amazing artistry, and this highly developed language.
Unparalleled wisdom and artistry. That's quite a picture for a lost land.
Yeah.
Are there, specific examples or descriptions in the text that give us a real feel for it?
Oh, absolutely. One of the really vivid ones is in the Silapatikaram. It's one of the 5 great epics of Tamil literature.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
Right. It vividly describes the city of Puhar, sometimes called Kavaripumpatnam, actually being submerged by the sea.
Wow.
And this isn't just some random flood story. It's often directly linked to this idea of the land of Kumari Kandam disappearing. It's like a tangible piece of the bigger cataclysm.
So a specific city being lost is tied to the larger legend.
Exactly. And central to all this are the Pandyas, a legendary dynasty of Tamil kings. They're believed to have actually ruled Kumari Kandam.
Right, the Pandyas.
Yeah. And they're shown not just as, powerful warriors, but also as great patrons of arts and learning. They supported the famous Tamil Sangams.
Ah, the Sangams. These were like academies, weren't they? Crucial for the language.
Precisely, yeah. Academies or assemblies. The literature talks about 3 of them. The first Sangam, or Mudha Sangam, the second Aide Sangam, and then the third Kadai Sangam.
Okay.
Now, the really key part here is that the first 2, the Mudhal and Aide Sangams, are said to have been held in Kumari Kandam, in cities that are now lost underwater.
Really? Which cities?
Specifically, Tenmadurai, which means southern Madurai, that was supposed to be the first capital and later in a place called Kapadapuram.
So the intellectual centers were on this lost land.
That's the tradition.
Right.
These Sangams were vital. They refined Tamil, preserved it, produced huge amounts of literature. Sadly, most of it is now lost, believed to have gone down with the land.
That's incredible and tragic.
It really paints a picture of a culture deeply invested in its identity, its language, its knowledge, literally fighting the waves, you could say, to keep it alive.
It's just amazing to think about, this vibrant, thriving civilization.
Yeah.
But like so many golden ages and stories, it seems there was a catastrophic end. What do the texts say happened? How did it all, disappear?
Yeah, the consistent story across the text is about these devastating deluges. The term used is kadalkol.
Kadalkol. What does that mean exactly?
It translates roughly as swallowing by the sea. And we're not talking about, minor flooding.
Right.
These are described as monumental events. Think cataclysmic tsunamis or maybe really rapid sea level rise, things that just consumed huge chunks of the land repeatedly.
Repeatedly. So it wasn't just one big apocalypse, but more like a series of disasters chipping away at it.
Exactly like that. It seems it was a process. Each major Kadal call forced the survivors to move north.
Oh.
So they'd have to relocate the Sangams, rebuild their society further inland or further north. And each time, they carried what they could, their knowledge, their culture, their memories.
That's an incredible narrative of resilience, isn't it? It's constantly adapting, moving, preserving.
It really is. It speaks volumes about this idea of an indomitable spirit, this adaptive capacity that's seen as part of the Tamil heritage. But the cumulative effect over time was that the entire landmass was eventually submerged.
Leaving just the stories, the memories.
Exactly. Just those fragments we find in the literature and the oral traditions.
Wow. Okay, so that's the powerful narrative from within the Tamil tradition. But then things get even more complex, right? How did this ancient legend somehow get tangled up with Western scientific ideas, even philosophical ones, centuries later? That seems like quite a jump.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Because while the core story, the heart of Kumari Kandam, is absolutely rooted in Tamil tradition,
Right.
the idea of a lost continent, specifically in the Indian Ocean, actually got a separate boost in the 19th century from Western scholars.
Okay, how did that happen?
This is where the name Lemuria enters the picture.
Lemuria. Right, I know that name. It often comes up in more, let's say, esoteric circles. But didn't it start as a scientific thing?
You're absolutely right, it did. Lemuria was originally proposed back in 1868 by zoologists and geologists. Ernst Haeckel is a key name here.
Haeckel.
His idea was purely scientific initially. He needed to explain why certain species, especially lemurs, were found in places like India, Madagascar, and parts of Africa, which are now separated by vast oceans.
So a land bridge.
Exactly. He hypothesized a submerged land bridge or continent Lemuria could explain that distribution pattern.
Makes sense from that perspective back then.
It did, based on the knowledge at the time. Then later, you get figures like H.P. Blavatsky, the founder of Theosophy.
Ah, yes. Theosophy.
Right, which is more of an esoteric philosophy dealing with spiritual wisdom, hidden knowledge. She took the idea of Lemuria and wove it into her own cosmology. She linked it to these ancient, highly advanced root races of humanity.
Okay, so it went from science hypothesis to spiritual concept.
Precisely. And it's really crucial to keep that distinction clear. Lemuria started as a scientific hypothesis, one that, by the way, was later disproven by our modern understanding of plate tectonics.
Right, continental drift explained the species distribution differently.
Exactly. Theosophy, on the other hand, is a distinct spiritual or esoteric philosophy. But, the fact that these Western ideas about a lost land in that same general area existed, it created a kind of fertile ground.
I see.
It meant the Kumari Kandam narrative found a wider audience, maybe gained a different kind of legitimacy in some circles. But it also, unfortunately, led to the two concepts, Lemuria and Kumari Kandam, getting conflated sometimes.
Muddled together.
Yeah, even though they have very different origins and meanings. One's a discarded scientific theory, the other's an ancient cultural legend.
That really brings us to the crux of it then. After looking at the legends, the literature, this Lemuria connection, what does modern science, especially geology, actually say? Is there any possibility of a vast continent like Kumari Kandam having existed?
Yeah, that's the big question. And if we look at it purely from a modern scientific standpoint, based on geology and plate tectonics, the idea of a huge continent like the one described in the texts existing and sinking there, well, it's largely unsupported.
Unsupported. Why is that?
Mainly because of plate tectonics. Our understanding of how Earth's crustal plates move, the Indian subcontinent traveling north over millions of years from Gondwana, colliding with Asia.
Right, creating the Himalayas.
Exactly. That whole well-established model just doesn't really leave room for a massive, recently sunken continent in that specific location south of India.
Okay, so the continental scale seems unlikely based on current geology.
Correct. However, and this is a really important however, that doesn't mean we dismiss the possibility of smaller land masses or islands, or maybe even quite extensive coastal regions being submerged over time.
So not a continent, but significant coastal changes.
Yes. We know for a fact that sea levels have risen dramatically since the last ice age. The post-glacial sea level rise, which kind of stabilized around, say, 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, that inundated huge areas of coastline worldwide.
Right, places that were once dry land are now underwater.
Absolutely. Plus, you can have localized events, earthquakes causing land subsidence, tsunamis altering coastlines. These things definitely happen and could certainly destroy coastal settlements.
So while maybe not Kumari Kandam as a continent, is there any archaeological evidence anywhere that points to ancient coastal settlements being lost to the sea in that region or nearby, even if not directly called Kumari Kandam?
Well, yes, there is evidence for coastal submergence in India. A famous example, though it's further north, is the submerged city found off the coast of Dwarka in Gujarat.
Lurka.
Now, to be clear, that's not directly linked by archaeologists to the Kumari Kandam legend itself. But what it does show, very powerfully, is that ancient coastal cities did face destruction and inundation. It proves the coastlines weren't static.
So it shows that the type of event described in the legend, cities being swallowed by the sea, is actually plausible, historically speaking.
Exactly. It demonstrates the possibility. So, kind of wrapping this part up, while we don't have geological proof for that vast continent, the legend's enduring power isn't really about geology for many people.
It's more about the cultural meaning.
Precisely. For many Tamils, Kumari Kandam is this potent symbol. It represents their incredibly ancient heritage, their resilience against disaster, the sheer depth of their language and culture going back millennia. It fosters immense pride.
A connection to a foundational, almost mythic past.
Yes, a belief in a time when their ancestors were, pioneers of knowledge and civilization, even in the face of these overwhelming natural forces. It's like remembering this epic struggle for survival and cultural continuity.
What an incredible journey we've taken, really. From digging into ancient Tamil poetry and epic tales, the power of myth, then weeding through 19th century scientific theories, and finally landing on modern geology, all circling this captivating idea of Kumari Kandam.
It really is captivating, and I think Kumari Kandam continues to fascinate scholars, historians, everyone really, because it reminds us so strongly about how human memory, huge geological forces, and our own deep need to understand where we come from, how they all interact.
Yeah.
It stands as this really vibrant testament, I think, to the enduring spirit of a civilization that holds on to its ancient roots, despite, the changing tides of history and geology.
Absolutely. And hey, if you decide to travel to present-day Tamil country and experience this incredible culture firsthand, we do have a recommendation.
Oh, yeah.
Five Senses Tours organizes tours across India, which are immersive cultural experiences. You can email contact@fivesensestours.com. That's the numeral 5, SENSESTOURS.com. Or you can WhatsApp them at +91 984 5677 446. So for you, our listener, maybe here's something to think about. Whether Kumari Kandam was a literal physical continent or perhaps more of a symbolic representation of vast coastal lands that were tragically lost to the rising seas. How do these ancient stories, these narratives of loss and survival, continue to shape who we are today, our identity, our collective memory?
That's a great question.
Yeah, and what other lost lands, maybe not on geological maps but buried deep in our cultural minds, might still be out there just waiting for their stories to be heard again?